Mom, sis, and grandma, you're family, so I expect a $30,000 wedding gift from each of you. Oh, but don't invite grandma to the wedding. It's just a hassle to make accommodations for someone in a wheelchair. I couldn't believe what sis was saying. It gave me a headache. Grandma, who sis said shouldn't come to the wedding, is like a mother to us. Moreover, grandma's need for a wheelchair is entirely sis's fault. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't even think of her as my sister anymore. My name is Jessica. Growing up, my sister Chloe and I had a rough time. Dad was a violent drunk. Mom always took the brunt of it, trying to protect Chloe and me. It was heart-wrenching to see Mom with bruises all over. Dad was like a storm every time he came home. He would go on a rampage, turning everything upside down. Chloe and I spent our childhood huddled in a corner, waiting for the storm to pass. As you might expect, our parents eventually divorced. Dad was furious when the divorce came up, but Mom somehow managed to go through with it. Custody went to Mom, so Chloe and I ended up living at Mom's childhood home. That's when Chloe, Mom, Grandma, and I started living together. Grandma is incredibly kind and showered us with love to heal our emotional wounds. Because Mom was working full-time, Grandma took care of most of the household chores. She cooked our favorite meals, taught us the names of the flowers in the garden, and instilled good manners in us. I can't thank Grandma enough, so I couldn't understand Chloe's gradual change of heart. Around the time she hit her rebellious phase, Chloe started to change. She often hung out with a bad crowd and stopped studying altogether. Even at home, she'd grumble, "Move it," when she passed us in the hallway or on the stairs. Chloe's bad attitude was a constant concern for me, Mom, and Grandma. But things came to a head when Chloe was in college. By then, Chloe regularly came home in the early morning hours. She often came home drunk, reminding me of the worst of Dad. On the day the incident happened, Chloe came home drunk from a club party. I was already disgusted by her wandering around the house so carelessly when the incident happened. "Hey, Grandma, you're in the way, move," as Grandma was slowly descending the stairs due to her bad back. Chloe knew this, yet she pushed Grandma from behind just because she was in her way. Losing her balance from the sudden shove while holding onto the handrail, Grandma fell down the stairs. An ambulance had to be called. Mom and I really let Chloe have it. Pushing an elderly person is just unimaginable. Even with the arrival of the ambulance, Chloe sobered up a bit, but kept justifying herself, saying, "I barely touched her. Who would think she'd fall from just that?" Grandma ended up fracturing her leg and worsening her already bad back, resulting in a hospital stay. I visited Grandma daily, constantly encouraging her as she diligently worked through her rehab. Yet Chloe never once came to visit. Chloe committed a crime. How could she do this to Grandma, who has always taken care of us? I'd say in rage, to which Grandma would always reply, "It's okay, it's fine." Though Grandma smiled, it was clear from her downturned eyebrows that she was saddened by Chloe's actions. Grandma worked hard in rehab, but ultimately had to adjust to life in a wheelchair. None of us had ever thought this would happen, and our house was not equipped for it. We made some adjustments like installing ramps, but Grandma was deeply saddened by her new limitations. While I was in college, I had the time to help Grandma, but that became difficult after I started working. We told Chloe, who was still a student, "You're the reason Grandma is in a wheelchair now, so please help her when you're home." But our words fell on deaf ears. While scrolling through her phone, Chloe would respond with a careless, yeah, and continued her partying and drinking, never assisting Grandma when she needed it. Our patience was wearing thin with Chloe, but the tipping point came when she announced she was getting married. "I'm pregnant, and I'm marrying a very wealthy man. Sorry, sis, for getting married before you, especially since I'm the beautiful one and I'm marrying up." Looking down her nose at me, Chloe starts talking about her dream wedding, a far-off look in her eyes. Apparently, she's planning to have the ceremony sooner rather than later to avoid being visibly pregnant, with her wealthy husband providing ample funds. Chloe boasts that she can have the wedding of her wildest dreams. I'm wearing a princess-like dress for the wedding. I'm planning a lot of surprises, and I'm going to go all out with the food. So, Mom and Sis, you should feel grateful I'm even inviting you. While I find Chloe's behavior intolerable, she is my sister. I was genuinely happy for her marriage and pregnancy, but being told to be grateful for an invitation was off-putting. Furthermore, Chloe only mentioned Mom and me, completely omitting Grandma. Unaware of my growing suspicion, Chloe unknowingly answers my unspoken questions. Mom, Sis, and Grandma are family, so I'm expecting wedding gifts to be around $30,000. Oh, but don't invite Grandma to the ceremony. It's a hassle to accommodate someone in a wheelchair, you know. I couldn't believe the nerve of my sister Chloe. I knew she was out of line, but this was just too much. The amount she expected for a wedding gift was outrageous, and most shocking of all, the idea of not inviting Grandma to the wedding was unthinkable to me. Grandma stepped in to take care of us when Mom was swamped at work. She raised us with so much love. To treat Grandma like she's a burden, and to think Chloe was the one who pushed Grandma down the stairs, leading to her being wheelchair-bound. Grandma has been saying how she feels like a burden since then. Chloe's words must have cut her deep. For Grandma, who's often felt down since becoming wheelchair-bound, thinking she's a burden to everyone, Chloe's words would have been tough to hear. Though Grandma said congratulations to Chloe, her usually kind smile was tinged with sadness. I couldn't stand it anymore. A surge of anger bubbled up from within, an anger that had been simmering ever since Grandma was pushed down the stairs. That was the moment I decided I was done considering Chloe my sister. All right, make sure you get a proper wedding gift. You better wear something nice, or you'll make my fiancé's high-profile guests look bad, Chloe said. With that, she wheeled out a large suitcase from her room and left the house as if she owned the place, completely ignoring Mom's angry shouts. I'm so happy to finally get out of this old, dirty house, she said, filled with spite, and left, waving her hand. Mom and Grandma were stunned for a moment, but I was burning with a desire for revenge. I shared my plan with Mom and Grandma, and although they were shaken, after all, Chloe is Mom's daughter and Grandma's granddaughter, if they disagreed, I was going to try to talk them out of it. But they thought about it for a minute, and then nodded. We need to set her straight once and for all, Mom said, filled with regret about her parenting. Grandma reassured her. You were an excellent mother. It's my fault Chloe turned out this way. Seeing the two of them so hurt only fueled my determination for revenge even more. Months later, the day of Chloe's wedding arrived. Since it was a day off, I was enjoying a cozy tea time at home with a book. I looked at the clock and noticed that Chloe's wedding had already started. Grandma had even baked cookies to go with the delicious tea, making for a truly serene day off. Just then, both my and Mom's cell phones and the home line began to ring. Frustrated by the relentless calls, Mom was about to answer the phone, but I stopped her. It's not her battle to fight. It's my revenge as the older sister. Hey, sis, why aren't you at the wedding? Mom's not here either. What's going on? None of my friends are here either, so my guest seats are empty. I responded calmly to Chloe's teary voice. Do you really think Mom and I would support someone who doesn't appreciate Grandma, who has been so good to us? We all warned you multiple times about your behavior, but you ignored us. So we decided to ignore your requests. We're not coming to the wedding, and we're not sending a gift. You're lying. You told my friends not to come, didn't you? I don't know your friends. If they're not there, doesn't that just show you're not as loved as you thought? Unbelievable. They all RSVP'd, yes. Chloe's voice was filled with sorrow, but I had more to say. By the way, we sold Grandma's house and moved. We're not telling you where. What? Why wasn't I informed? We don't want you to come. You've made Grandma's life miserable. Why are you being so cruel? We're sisters. The one who forced Grandma into a wheelchair is you, Chloe. Our new home is entirely accessible, and we even designed the kitchen to be easy for Grandma to use. She baked cookies today, and we're enjoying them now in our new home. That's heartless. Just come to the wedding now. My fiancé is furious. Well, brace yourself for more embarrassment then. What do you mean? I invited Dad. He'll probably get quite drunk and make it a memorable reception. We haven't seen Dad since the divorce. We had occasionally received letters from him, but that was it. After getting Dad's contact information from Mom and asking him to come for Chloe's wedding, he was thrilled. Great news, sounds like there'll be plenty of booze. He was looking forward to it, so Dad would surely liven up the reception. Please stop this. I'm tired of talking to Chloe. I pretended the call was breaking up and hung up. I blocked Chloe's number and even unplugged our landline to stop her calls. Days later, the landline rang. It was Chloe crying. "Help me," she said. "What happened?" "Everything's a mess," she sobbed. She then proceeded to tell me how her reception turned out. Dad's drinking problem was as bad as ever. It seems he caused a scene at the wedding reception. He grabbed the microphone from the DJ and went on an uninvited rant about how lonely he felt about his daughter's marriage. He sang a song and even tripped while drunk, crashing headfirst into another table. Chloe's husband, being a CEO, had many business partners at the wedding who were completely disappointed by Dad's actions. Several people even left, saying they felt uncomfortable. Unsurprisingly, the husband and his family were furious. Chloe seemed to be under attack from all sides, but then an even bigger issue emerged. Turns out, Chloe wasn't actually pregnant. Chloe, who hadn't been focused on her studies, seemed to think it was okay to later claim she had a miscarriage. She lied to her husband, claiming to be pregnant to elevate her social standing. Her husband became suspicious when Chloe's belly didn't grow, and upon investigating, he quickly uncovered her lie. Between Dad's antics at the wedding and her own dishonesty, Chloe's husband was understandably furious. Divorce is now on the table, and she's even facing demands for financial compensation in the divorce proceedings. Chloe, who had never really worked a day in her life, has almost no savings. She found herself in a difficult situation, kicked out of the house by her husband and with nowhere to go. After hearing Chloe's whole story, I felt sympathy and said, "Wow, that's really a tough situation." Chloe cried, "So help me, sis." But I felt nothing. I realized on that call that Chloe and I are not truly sisters. "I'm not your sister anymore. I have no intention of helping you. And if Mom and Grandma are swayed by your tears, I'll do everything to stop them from supporting you. Live your own life." "Why won't you help me with that?" Chloe pleaded. "I said goodbye," I replied, and hung up the phone on a crying Chloe. Afterward, I suggested that we didn't really need a landline phone anymore since we all have mobile phones. Both Mom and I have blocked Chloe's number, severing ties with her completely. Rumor has it that Chloe is now leading a life soaked in alcohol, struggling to make payments for the financial compensation demanded in her divorce. Maybe she really did inherit Dad's bad traits. As for me, Mom, and Grandma, the three of us are living peacefully in our accessible home. Grandma can now do many things she couldn't do before. She can cook her favorite meals and do laundry, and she shows a brighter smile, feeling that she contributes to the family. Mom's job is still demanding, but she seems a bit more relaxed now that Chloe, the problematic child, is out of the picture. As for me, without the constant worry about Chloe potentially hurting Grandma, I can focus better on my work. My hard work has been acknowledged, and my superiors see a bright future for me. While taking good care of Mom and Grandma,
"All right, everyone's presentations are done," Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me and began to speak. "There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only." "Absolutely right." His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. "I'm leaving." After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick, is something wrong?" Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. "I'm leaving." I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick! What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. "Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize." Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. "What kind of training are you giving your subordinates?" Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed, I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." "Mike, what have you done?" Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here." "He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.